All right, my name is Starseed Bey. This is part four now of continuing. But really, this each part of these videos actually has a single story, so they're not really parts, but it's a continuation. So yeah. But what I was touching base on in the previous video was learning to overcome your old self. And that's what I was reading with First Corinthians and kind of hinting at uh, with this First Corinthians 10:13. No temptation has overtaken you except such as is common to humans. But Abba the Father, Most High God, is faithful, who will not allow you to be tempted beyond what you are able, but with the temptation will also make the way of escape, then you may be able to bear it. Um, and this is what I was talking about previously in the other ones, is that when you become new, say you found Christ within your life, or you just have changed your life, you got yourself out of drugs and alcohol, things like that, trying to better your life, but you still have friends that do these things as well. They're still drinking and smoking and doing drugs, and they're in your life daily, and you kind of go back into that habit while still maintaining a spiritual path. And I've seen this a lot um, through my walks, is that people are scared to lose friendships. People are scared to lose touch, but it's really, you have to really look at, from a self-awareness standpoint, that when you're surrounded by people who do drugs and drink and things like that all the time, and they see you drinking, even though your life has changed and you're talking more about Christ and bettering your life, but you're still drinking and smoking, um, the people who are watching you are observing you going, hmm, he's really just kind of the same. He's really just kind of the same. He talks about Christ and stuff, but it's really just kind of the same. And and sometimes people will ask for Christ in their life as well, but the addiction stuff still remains. That ego self still remains, and they continue to drink and do drugs. And when you still do drugs and drinking, you are easily influenced um, into that depression state that you can get yourself into. Your judgment gets clouded, your mind gets clouded, and you can't make good decisions. And say you're drinking and getting high, and something happens in your life. Somebody goes to the hospital, a family member, maybe your wife or your husband or something like that happens drastically, and you're drunk or you're high, you can't clean yourself up. So you're all struggling all over the place trying to get to the hospital, and then you end up in a car wreck or an accident because you weren't clear-headed. You weren't clear-headed, and you weren't balanced, and you weren't mature in your mind. You weren't mature in your mind. Every action that you have, you take responsibility for, and you need to be prepared for anything that happens in your life. Be clear-headed always. Never be cloudy within your mind to make your judgment overlooked, to make your judgment just mess up your life. Man, I wonder why my internet will work. Oh, excuse me. Anyways, but yeah, this is very serious stuff, man. I mean, you have to realize that that can happen to you. You still drinking and doing drugs, even though you have a strong foundation with Christ. But if something drastic happens in your life, how are you going to get to the hospital to go and see your loved one? Maybe they only have an hour to live, and and you're drunk. How are you going to get there? How are you going to get there? Or, maybe your child is at somebody else's house and your child got sick or their friend got sick and they need a ride home. They call you and you're all drunk and your child doesn't know you do this behind closed doors. That's going to be with your child forever. That's going to be with your child forever. We got to make mature decisions in everything we do. Make mature decisions in everything we do. And be that influence. If you change your life for the better and you quit smoking and drinking, and your friends turn on you saying, "Oh, well, you're no fun no more," um, let them go. Let your friends go. You have to. You have to. And the only thing that you can really do is just be an inspiration to them. Still call them on the phone, say, "Hey, how are you doing, man? How's life treating you?" And just be that open door for them. Be that positive influence. Don't go back to what they're doing. Go back to what they're doing. Don't go back to the drinking. Don't go back to the smoking. Don't go back to the drugs and things like that. Um, you gotta stay clear headed, man. You gotta stay clear headed. It's so very important to stay clear headed. So you can make better judgment calls in your life, especially when something drastic may happen in your life. That can change your life in a split second, man. A split second. Um, I definitely wanted to touch base on that because a lot of people still struggle with that. Um, people are discovering Christ in their life, and they struggle with their old life. They do, and you just have to be that influence. And I'm not saying you can't go to parties and stuff, but just go to parties and then just stay sober, just stay sober and just hang out with people. Just be there for people and just carry conversations. I've talking to people who are drunk and they don't remember nothing the next day. I may have told them some amazing stuff that could help their lives, but they don't remember it. But the key word is that you were there, you were balanced, you were clear-headed, and you were there for them. And that's what matters, is you were a guardian angel for them. And that's one of the key things is that we can become guardian angels for people. If you're balanced and clear-headed and your friend is drunk and high, and you weren't there, and say they go outside and they stumble or they get hit by a car because no one was watching them. But if you're there and the person wants to go outside, you're like, no, you're staying inside. You're too drunk. You're not going to know left from right. So you saved their lives because you were there and you were sober. But if you weren't there, they would have lost their life. So what you do matters. And cleaning up your life matters because it helps others. And that's, again, is what this is all about, is helping others on their path and being real. I'm being real with you guys. I'm real and honest with you guys, and these are the things that I see. And you know, it's up to you and what you choose. It's up to you and what you choose in your life. It really is. It really is. Um, every choice you make has an impact on people, not only on yourselves, but to others. It has an impact on children. If you have children, you have to be that good, positive role model and with good morals for that kid to grow up right. For the kid to grow up right. And, there's so many kids that grow up with their parents being addicted to drugs and alcohol. Sometimes their aunts and uncles take care of them because their parents are so messed up. Their grandmas and granddads will take care of their kids because their parents are messed up. Um, And when that's the case, the parents, the aunts and uncles, they need to have a balanced life. The grandpas and grandmas, they need to have a balanced life. Um, we influence the children of tomorrow. Um, and we just have to maintain that. Uh, and, you know, generate funness. What is fun? Having fun. Is just having fun with people, talking with people, having a conversation with people. You don't need drugs and alcohol to have a good time. A lot of people will create parties with drugs and alcohol to generate a conversation of, oh, this person did some funny stuff when they were drunk, and that was a whole conversation. Nothing came from it. But nowadays, we actually have good structures of fun. I mean, you can have good conversations with people, um, and not be drunk or high. And the reason why I bring this up is because so many people still struggle with this stuff. And people are looking for answers in their lives. They can't find it, so they drink and do drugs. They get depressed, um, and they just don't know where to turn. And it clouds their judgment, and they make bad decisions. And sometimes those bad decisions, they lose their life over it. And it's sad. They lose their lives so young when they had such a bright future for them. And a lot of people get lost in that. People fall back into drugs and drinking, and then they lose their marriage. They lose their marriage. They lose their children. You can lose a lot. You can lose a lot, and it really forces you to do a self-reflection of your life in a harder way. You shouldn't have to go through that, but sometimes you gotta have a harder life to find that balance, to find that structure. So yeah, so like I said, if you want to change your life, it starts with you, and you have to make sacrifices. To be a new person, you have to get rid of the old. Um, as part of the second life or the second death, is that we get rid of the old and become anew, become anew. So I'm going to go ahead and read these scriptures and get out of here. I've been talking for quite a while. So yeah, so we'll go ahead and end it here soon. I'll read. How much more is there? Not too many. So we'll go ahead and read through these, and then we will close this out. The inward change, 2 Corinthians 5:14 through 15. For the love of Christ compels us, because we judge those that if one died for all, then all died. And he died for all, that those who live should live no longer for themselves, but for him who died for them and rose again. And again, this brings up a good point. This is why I love the book of Christ, is that Christ shared his sacrifices for humanity. And this really gets twisted. And, you have to do the research on this, but this really gets twisted. Christ sacrificed everything for being a positive influence for others. He was clear-headed, and he made good decisions, and he was a positive being that showed people that we need to not follow the ways of the world, and we need to make our own personal choices, decisions, and create a healthy, balanced life within ourselves. And that's what it's all about. People can look at it of, that Christ died to save us from our sins, and that we just have to say the words, but no, it's living, it's acting upon it. It's that we need to be like Christ. We need to walk like Christ. And we need to be an influence like Christ for those who are lost, who are not clear-headed, who made bad decisions in their lives. We make those sacrifices so then we can help those out who are lost and alone in their life, and then they can learn on how to make sacrifices and the power of forgiveness within them in their lives because they watched you being influenced to them. And that's the power of Christ right there. That's the story of Christ right there, is that he was a positive influence to the world. That you don't have to live by the world. You're going to get hated, you're going to get ridiculed, but at the end of the day, if you can save one person or 10 people or 1,000 people, you did your job. That's what it means. To be clear-headed and be mature. Be mature. 1 John 2:15 through 17. Do not love the world or the things in the world. If anyone loves the world, the love of the Father is not in him. For all that is in the world, the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, and the pride of life, is not of the Father, but is of the world. And the world is passing away, and the lust of it. But he who does the will of the Most High, of the Father, God, abides forever. And basically that means that when we clean up our lives and we overcome our obstacles and challenges in our lives, through alcohol, drugs, drinking, being super depressed and negative, and we become more balanced, positive, clean up our life and be more clear-headed, we learn on what it's like to truly live, and we stick out in front of the world. And this allows people who are the way of the world can have a way of escape out of the world. They can look at us and go, hey, Adam has a very positive view on life, and he cares about others, and he wants to see others grow. He talks about this forgiveness. What is this forgiveness? Making people think, and allowing that door to open for their lives so they're not stuck with all of this lust of the flesh, lust of the eyes, and pride of life. Talking about I am better than you and things like that. Let's see, Galatians 2 through 20. Galatians 2:20. I have been crucified with Christ Mashiach. It is no longer I who live, but Christ Mashiach lives in me. And the life which I now live in the flesh, I live by faith in the Son of Abba the Father, the Most High God, who loved me and gave himself for me. The power of I am. Again, I am the way, I am the truth, I am the life. No one goes through the Father but through me. So powerful, man. So powerful. Romans 6:11 through 12. Likewise, you also reckon yourselves to be dead indeed to ego, but alive to Abba the Father, the Most High God, in Mashiach Christ. Therefore, do not let ego reign in your mortal body, that you should obey it in its lust. Again, ego can overtake us so easy. But if you live by the foundational structure of Christ, Mashiach, you can become self-aware of when this ego does try to come up. You can learn on how to balance it. You don't want to hold it back, but you want to learn how to balance your ego. Galatians 5:24. And those who are Christ, Mashiach's, have crucified the flesh with its passions and desires. Again, meaning that when we clean up our life, we are creating that sacrifice for our life. We are creating that sacrifice and getting rid of the old self and creating a new self. And we have to maintain that. Definitely. I think I'm going to go ahead and end it. I feel like if I talk anymore, it's going to kind of water down the message here. So as a whole, through this whole thing, it's all about the power of I am. Of taking control of your life, observing your life. And again, this is where I always use the new moon and full moon as a foundation for you guys to create that balance within your life. Look at what you need to change in your life. Look at what has changed in your life, and look at what has benefited in your life from that change, and what lives have changed surrounding you. Have you changed people's lives just by your actions alone? You got to look at these aspects in your life, and go, hey, you know, I was at a party, I didn't drink and do drugs, and I was with a friend, and we were just kind of talking about that and saying, I don't drink or anything because it just clouds my judgment, and it doesn't benefit me at all. And this person may have just drank one beer and then just looked at it and was like, you know what? How did your life change? What made you decide to do that? And maybe carry that kind of conversation. And maybe that person, because you were clear headed, they gave their life to Christ that night through a party. They only had one beer, and that was the last beer they ever drank because you were that influence that that person needed, because you weren't drinking or doing drugs, but you helped change that person's life and allowed them to discover Christ for the first time in their life. And it's very powerful. It's very powerful. And that's what the key thing is to this whole thing, is that we have to be clear-headed in our own judgment and be that influence always. No matter what happens. No matter what happens, we have to be clear-headed. Always. And that's the message through this video, is being clear-headed and realizing that anything can happen. If you're not clear-headed, again, what I talked about in the beginning of this video, you get drunk or you get high and something happens to your family member, your wife or husband or children ends up in the hospital. How are you going to get to the hospital? Maybe they only got an hour to live. And if you weren't drunk or high, you could have spent those final moments with your loved one. It's deep, man. And again, maybe your kid was staying the night and their friend got sick, so they need to come home. So they called you, but you were too drunk to be able to answer the phone. And you couldn't be there for them because you weren't clear-headed. So you definitely need to look at your life and just be that influence. You lose friends, man. But at the end of the day, you could also save people. Because what's the good of watching your friends drink and do drugs and do an overdose when, you could just help people get out of that addiction. So yeah, definitely think about that. Very powerful. Power of I am. I am the way, I am the truth, I am the life. No one goes to the Father but through me. Make that change. Be that change in your life. And once you make that change, you can be an inspiration to others. So I could keep talking forever. So I'm going to go ahead and end this video as well as this live feed. If you got any questions, let me know. Yeah, man, it's just be that positive influence, man. Now's a good time to change. Just change, man. Just change. And it definitely takes time, but just change. And when you make that sacrifice to change, trust me, other people will notice. Other people will notice that change, and you can be the influence for those who are also willing to change. So yeah, love yourself. Keep shining bright. And yeah, I'll talk to you guys in a little bit. Shalom. All right. And I'll talk to you guys in a little bit.